Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Brad, this is Q-Branch Woodworks, and today's bowl is a bit of an experiment in technology. Late last year, I bought myself a 3D printer, and where this has really come in handy is in making small gadgets for the wood shop. I'm sure I'll make a video about it at some point, but what I decided to do today was to make a new rosette for my rose engine, which should give me the capability to make whatever patterns I want on the outside of these bowls. Now, in order to make a bowl on the rose engine, what I have to do is make a bowl to start with, so the basic rules all apply here. Use the woodworm screw, get things round on the outside, start shaping the exterior profile. The particular design that I'm using for this bowl sort of separates the top and the bottom with a shadow line that uses a half bead that folds over into a cove near the top of the bowl. I've been really enjoying this design recently. I think that it adds a nice shadow line, a nice visual differentiation between the top and the bottom of the bowl, and it only requires one serious cut. Now, after a little bit of light sanding, it's ready for the rose engine. The star of today's video is this 48 bump rosette that I printed in PLA. Now, as I will find out later, not all of those indexing holes are perfectly aligned. This will lead to some interesting interactions between the layers of the patterns since they aren't perfectly offset. I'm still working in Fusion to rectify this error. I'm not sure exactly how it happened, but it did still make a pretty interesting pattern on the outside. Now, one of the reasons that I decided to go with such a high number of bumps in the rosette is because the higher the number of bumps, the lower the overall amplitude, which means that there's actually less material to remove overall. This is purely from a production perspective. It is faster for me to remove the material from 48 bumps than it is from 24 or 12. You can start to see here in the pattern that things aren't perfectly aligned, so I wind up with some sort of interesting slanted lines between the rows of the pattern. I still think that it looks nice, but it's not exactly what I was looking for, so I'll have to go back to the drawing board in Fusion 360 and see where this misalignment occurred. Now here, I'm just giving everything a quick brush with a nylon brush. This helps get rid of all the little fuzzies and the pulled up grain that can happen sometimes on the rose engine. Yes, fuzzies is the technical term. From here on out, it's pretty much a standard bowl making experience. Just hollow out the middle, get the wall thickness correct. To elaborate a little bit further on why I'm using the 3D printer to make rosettes, A, it gives me the capability to create any number of bumps that I want in any orientation that I want, and B, it allows me to run the number of bumps sufficiently high that the production time starts to tumble because I don't have to remove as much material from the outside of the bowl. For example, if I have a 12 bump rosette, I have to achieve serious depth in the bowl with each round of cutting, whereas if I'm using a 48 bump rosette, I really don't have to remove that much material at all. This means fewer hours spent bent over the rose engine trying to get these pieces finished. Theoretically, this should also mean that I can generate profit on these bowls someday. To get proper alignment for my vacuum chuck, I'm using this tailstock spindle adapter, which has a 1x8 thread on it, so I can put the chuck in and then use the alignment between the tailstock and the headstock to, at least theoretically, get a nice alignment between the bowl and the vacuum chuck. I never seem to get things perfectly aligned on the vacuum chuck, but if I wanted millimeter precision, I'd probably go build cabinets instead anyway. I do think I've been doing a reasonable job this year of remembering to add some sort of visual element to the bottom of my bowls. I hate it when I go back into my bin and I flip over a bowl and I realize that I've just left it plain or flat in some way. So a big initiative for me this year is to make sure that no bowl that I produce has just a plain bottom. While working with the vacuum chuck, I try to make sure that as many of my cuts as possible are pushing the bowl into the chuck instead of applying lateral forces to it. Whenever I've had bowls come off the vacuum chuck, it's always when I'm trying to cut directly across the face. And here, just adding some beads to the bottom, just to make sure that whoever buys this bowl knows that I've at least thought about this surface. I also took this chance to take a little bit of material out of the middle so that the beads stand a little bit taller. I think it just adds a little bit of pop to the bottom. Next up, some sanding through 600 grit using that FinCat sandpaper, and then we're going to go ahead and pop it off and give it some finish. For the finish today, I'm using a 50-50 mix of Walrus Oil brand tongue oil and orange oil. The orange oil helps the tongue oil penetrate a little bit better into the bowl. That said, this is probably still going to take a couple of weeks to fully cure since it's relatively cold here in California. Now that there's some finish on here, we can see what the bowl looks like, and I'm pretty satisfied with the density of the pattern. I'm not sure that I'm super happy with the alignment, although it is still an interesting pattern. I did also want to take this opportunity to give a shout out to my newest paid member of the channel, Kevin Wheeler. Kevin, you're a gentleman and a scholar, and I really appreciate your support of the channel. Now time to dry the oil off, and then do everybody's favorite part, glamour shots. Thank you so much for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe.